Did you know that the blue tassels that are hanging out from the sides of Buggy's head are actually his hair tied together into ponytails? There you go. Even if you decide to stop watching this video right now, I hope that this at least blew your mind a little. I've talked a lot about One Piece and have analyzed a lot of characters. But one thing that I never would have guessed would be so interesting to discuss within the series in particular is Bugy. When you guys rose to my challenge last week and chose him for the next video, I didn't expect Bugy to be able to teach us as much about One Piece as it turns out that he actually does. Not only is Bugy a perfect representation of the story of One Piece itself, but he also teaches us a lot about what the actual One Piece might be. And speaking of the challenge, you guys did an amazing job. What better time to take a closer look at the warlords than right now, where they might become super relevant to the story again. Also, since last week's challenge was a crushing defeat for me, since you managed to get 2,000 likes in just 7 hours, I think we have to raise the bar a little for the next one and see if you can still make it. So, if you manage to bring this video to 3,000 likes in the very first 24 hours, the next video will be out by next Tuesday. But now, grab yourself a big cup of your favorite hot or cold beverage of choice. We have to talk about Bugy. Bugy the Clown has earned his epithet for a reason. His character design is centered around the varying theme of a circus clown mixed with that of a pirate. Most of the time we can see Bugy wearing makeup as well as his quite clowny white gloves and pointy shoes. The rest of his outfit is that of a pirate admiral, with a big marine-like coat and a big pirate's hat. Now, if you ask yourself why anyone would freely choose to dress in that way, the answer to that is Bugy's most prominent clown feature, his big red nose. Because his nose is not just another part of his costume, but his real actual nose. It doesn't come as a big surprise then that Bugy has always been very sensitive about this, and most likely it's the main reason for his insecurity that is a big driver of his character. This goes so far that Bugy at one point even destroys an entire town when kids are making fun of his nose. But he has made the most of his unique looks and embraced the, at first, a little quirky looking clown theme. However, if we're completely honest, I think we can all admit that Bugy's design is actually pretty cool. And if One Piece teaches us one thing in particular, it's that whether someone looks badass or weird is mostly determined by their character's personality and strength. While he was actually introduced as a quite shallow villain very early on in the story by Oda, his popularity with the fans and Oda himself led to Bugy slowly but steadily getting a more and more refined character build. So much so that his backstory is as far from shallow as it gets. Born somewhere on the Grand Line, Bugy served as an apprentice on the ship of the Pirate King himself. While it at first appears as if he didn't enjoy his time there at all, we slowly but steadily learn that he had a much closer relationship to his crew than we all initially thought. For example, we now know that during his time on the Oro Jackson, he highly respects and admires Rayleigh and Oden. And just like Shanks, Bugy must have had a very close relationship with Roger, since we can see him crying at his captain's execution. And speaking of Shanks, while at first it seemed like Bugy detested his fellow apprentice, it more and more looks like they actually also had a quite close relationship. Not only do the Marines describe their relationship as a brotherly bond, but even Whitebeard states that he remembers the two always being together. Seeing the two arm in arm on board of the Oro Jackson really rounds this impression off for me. And as we know, Shanks even invited Bugy to join him after Roger's death. Bugy, however, decides to leave the world of the Yonkos and Pirate Kings behind and tries to make a name for himself outside of the New World. So, despite his quite exciting and unexpected backstory, we first meet Bugy in the East Blue in Orangetown as one of the first major antagonists of the crew. But what really is it about the clown that makes him into such a fan favorite? While the initial impression with Bugy is often that he's a weak and incapable pirate, that is actually not the case. On the contrary, Bugy is quite smart. He has an eye for opportunities and understands to influence and deceive those around him. A great example for this is Bugy recruiting dozens of strong prisoners from Impel Down into his crew and joining the ranks of the shijibukai. All after having to join Luffy on his way into the depths of the prison and onto the battlefield at Marineford. Plus, we know that he's also a very capable chemist, developing his own variety of weapons like the Buggy bolts. And while Bugy certainly is not comparable to other members of the Roger Pirates in terms of fighting strength, he's by no means weak. Having fought alongside and against many legendary pirates, even if a bit reluctantly, surely has left its mark on him. Also, Bugy wields a quite formidable devil fruit power that not only allows him to float, but also avoid attacks of the likes of Zoro and Mihawk. A defining trait of Bugy that he partly shares with Luffy is also his dumb luck. No matter how dire the situation looks, Bugy always manages to pull his head out of the sling somehow. No matter if it's escaping Smoker, being struck by lightning, being slashed by Mihawk, or even being frozen by Aokiji, Bugy somehow always makes it out of these situations alive, and sometimes even for the better. The truly charming part about his personality, however, is the weird mix between comic relief and serious character that he brings to the story, because his purpose in the story seems to alternate between simply making the reader laugh or actually impacting the plot in meaningful ways. On the one hand, Bugy is often very hysterical and tends to cause a lot of confusion by misunderstanding or miscommunicating when talking to others. On the other hand, however, we also know of Bugy's insecurities and how he has to overcome them in order to become a better person. Slowly, he has become more and more relevant to the actual plot of the story. So in the end, this weird mix has led to Bugy getting a quite significant amount of character development over the course of the story, despite his initial design. In a way, I think you could even argue that it's the same recipe that Oda has used with Shanks. A character that was introduced as a simple and comic character at the beginning of the story that slowly turned out to be more and more of a big deal. A really big piece of evidence that Bugy is an important character to Oda is that he has a dream. Bugy also wants to become the Pirate King. And once again, Oda takes a twist on that dream with his character. While for Luffy the Pirate King is the person with the most freedom, and for Blackbeard the one with the most power, for Bugy, being the Pirate King means being the person with the most fortune in the world. He much rather thinks of treasure in terms of gold and silver, but nonetheless, he also has a dream that he strives to fulfill. So if you ever wondered why Bugy is such a popular character, it's because he has gained a lot more depth over the course of the story than we all could have anticipated when we first get to meet him. Now, what does all of this have to do with One Piece, and more importantly, with the One Piece? Well, this is where we have to look at Bugy's character arc. You see, Bugy's arc over the course of the story can be summarized as a sort of personification of the story. When we meet him in the East Blue in Orange Town, he's the first major antagonist to Luffy, Zoro and Nami. He starts out as a quite stereotypical, predictable and purely comic villain that our heroes have to take down. But then, just like the story itself, Bugy starts to become a bit more serious. He gets new and new layers of background and personality, and bit by bit he turns more and more complex, and slowly even starts to get a political gravity when becoming a warlord. I think you agree with me when I say that this is exactly what happened to the story of One Piece as a whole. Starting off as a pure adventure in a world of tropical islands and treasures, as well as of friends and villains, One Piece soon got a more heavy tone, and Oda gave his story more and more depth, character and complexity. Both Bugy and the story are heavily influenced by the main character, Monkey D. Luffy, and for both, Marineford was a central turning point for the reader's perception of them. During the Orange Town arc, Bugy turns a little bit kinder after being defeated by Luffy, but the Paramount War is the arc Bugy truly changed the most as a character. Not only does he end up helping Luffy multiple times, even if it initially is out of self-interest, but he also grows as a pirate. Rising into the ranks of the warlords, Bugy went from a completely comedic character to a tactician that has united countless strong pirates under his banner. And even people like Mr. 3, who are aware of the facade he's putting on, still decide to stick with him. Do you see how drastically different that is from early Bugy? He truly embodies the development of One Piece. But we're not done yet, because Bugy not only teaches us a lot about the story of One Piece, but also about the One Piece itself. the treasure left by Goldie Roger, and the reason for the Great Pirate Era. You see, despite serving under Roger himself and wanting to become the Pirate King, Bugy has no interest whatsoever in finding Laugh-Tale and the One Piece. Why is that? I think what this clearly tells us is that Bugy has at least a good idea what the One Piece is all about. And even though there's nothing he loves more than finding treasure, he doesn't want anything to do with it. I think the clear explanation for that is that the One Piece at its core has nothing to do with gold or silver. Is it possible that there are some piles of jewelry hoarded on Laugh-Tale? Sure, but Bugy seems to know that the true value of the One Piece lies with something else. Something that carries such heavy implication and consequences that any sort of material add-ons would kind of lose their meaning. As Whitebeard stated, finding the One Piece will shake the world to its core. And while Bugy truly has developed as a character, I think taking on the consequences of discovering Roger's treasure is something that only very few people could do. After all, Bugy shows us really well what treasure means to different people. He even talks about this with Shanks on board of the Oro Jackson. For Bugy, it means gold and silver, but for Shanks it means something more than that. Similar like to Roger, the One Piece will be something with a unique meaning just for him, and like his straw hat has a special meaning to Luffy. So there you have it. Bugy actually teaches us a lot about One Piece. And I think the way things are going at the moment, we can say for certain that he will become relevant to the story again soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to smash that like button for a fresh video next week and subscribe if you aren't already part of the crew. Also, let me know your title for Bugy that's better than the clown, and I'll present the best 1 or 2 ideas in the next video. If you want to learn more about the characters in One Piece, you can simply click here to keep watching in whatever comfortable position you're in right now. Otherwise, I see you around next time, and until then, have a wonderful week.